Adequate notice of this meeting being held on this 20th day of February 2024 at 7:34 has been provided in accordance with section 3D of chapter 231 of the public laws of 1975, commonly known as the Sunshine Law. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All. Here.
Kenny,
Here.
Lindsay,
Here.
Nelson, here, Muir,
Here.
O'Brien,
Here.
Mooney, here, and Mr. Decker is excused.
Good. I wish to open for public comment on the agenda.
Make a motion to open the public comment on the agenda.
Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
The public comment session on the agenda is just to question if something is appropriate for the agenda. We will have discussion points on the agenda items as we go through. So I should make that clear. If you have a question about a particular item, please save that for when it is presented on the agenda. Any comments on the agenda itself? Mr. Barber.
I'm not sure if this is appropriate now or going to be later. For the zoning, are we allowed to talk about that?
If it's for zoning-
I have a question. About the zoning vote tonight. It's been something that several of us have talked about. That back when the Manini property first started. I know we're going way back. My question, I guess, is for Mr. Kenny. If he was involved in him and or his law firm was involved in the litigation back when the first started with the town and the zoning and the planning board. Whether him and or his law firm were involved.
Okay, we can discuss that as when we get into the discussion item.
When we get to that point? Okay.
Any other questions about the agenda itself? Okay. I motion to close public comment on the agenda.
Make a motion to close public comment on the agenda.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to move some things around. We would like,
But I know what you're going to say, but we have a statement.
that's why I'm moving things
Okay,
around.
okay.
I said we're gonna go into an executive session at the start of the meeting, but out of respect for our trooper that's joined us tonight, I'd like to move the public safety report up to the point.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see you guys again. All right. So this is going to be the January 2025 Bethlehem Township activity report. For the month of January, there were 9 investigation reports generated. I looked into them. Half of them were on the highway. The other half were all isolated incidents, nothing related, so nothing of note to report on that. 21 operation reports. Those are going to be your medicals, abandoned vehicles, fires, stuff like that. Motor vehicle accidents, there were 16, a little bit up from last month, but we did have some weather. So 7 of those were on the back roads, 9 of them being on the interstate. So I'm probably expecting next February's month, since we've had all this weather, to be a little bit higher as well, but we'll see. And other than that, there was 1 drunk driving report generated in Bethlehem Township for January 2025. Other than that, I have nothing else. If anybody has any questions, areas of concern, you can bring it back to the station.
Any questions from me? I have one request, I've been meaning to reach out to you via email. If we can increase patrol presence during rush hour on Blackbrook. We've had 2 reported near hits of pedestrians. We have worked with our engineer. We'll be getting one of the digital speed signs from Bill Hunterdon.
Okay.
It's over at Alexandria now. I think in probably another 2 weeks it'll be over on Blackbrook, but I think your presence is even stronger than that speed sign. We can do that.
Absolutely. I'll let the station know, I'll let all the guys and girls know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good evening. Be safe.
Thanks.
Second, I motion to enter into executive session to discuss proposed litigation. No decisions will be made during that session.
Make a motion to go into executive session on litigation, no decisions to be made.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Session?
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to vote session at 8:01. We're going to do a consent on resolutions 2025.31, 2025.32, 2025.33, 2025.34, 2025.35. Have a motion to accept those resolutions.
I make a motion to accept resolutions 2025.31 through 35.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I have a motion to adopt resolution 2025.36, certification of funds for the year 2025 township professionals.
I make a motion to adopt resolution 2025.36 for the certification of funds.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Cotton,
Yes.
Kenny,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Muir.
Yes.
Thank
The motion to adopt resolution 2025.37, the 2025 professional services fair and open process for the planning board.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2025.37 for professional services for the planning board.
Second. Second. Roll call for this also.
Cotton,
Yes.
Kenny,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Muir.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. A motion to pay all bills in the amount of $49,627.50.
Make a motion to pay the bills in that amount.
I'll second. Roll call vote, please.
Cotton,
Yes.
Kenny,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Muir.
Yes. Mr. Engineers, excused in the meeting tonight, there are no updates. So move on to old business, public hearing for ordinance 497.2025, amending and revising chapter 102, land use and development of the township code. Have a motion to open for public comment?
Make a motion to open a public comment.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
For public comment, just as a reminder, resolution 2023.93 is a 5-minute maximum time to speak. And we would not take second comments unless everybody has completed their comments. We're open for public comment.
Good evening. Barbara Cochran, 507 Charlestown Road. So, the quality and quantity of development in the proposed ordinance does not satisfy the will of the public, first of all. Then the land use in the ordinance does not match up with the Highlands Council LUC's land use capability zone map. I looked at the map and I have some snippet here if you want to see it. There's a discrepancy in the acreages on all the lots the split lots and 34, block 34, lot 5. There's only 15 acres are marked and looks as existing community zone. All around is protection zone. So the ordinance is changing it to highway commercial, allowing multiple use per lot, meaning they can pave it. They can pave it as industrial and it's not even a community zone. At the time of the master plan review of the land use element, Bethlehem Township could have applied to the Highlands Preservation and Redevelopment Area designation, but there is no such application. Nothing came from my open request. At the time of the master plan hearing, many residents showed up asking not to change the rural nature of the township and corridor. So the Township Committee members have a chance tonight to explain the benefits to residents with developing the corridor in a truck hub. If you want to look at my snippets, I'll give them to you.
There, Mr. Stein. Thank you. Rob?
Susan Longer, 424 Charlestown Road. Still in objection to this ordinance. It's inconsistent with our own master plan. It didn't follow the Highlands Council's policy of getting reviewed to be consistent with the regional master plan. And I just don't understand also, at the last planning board meeting, it was determined inconsistent with the master plan and they made recommendations to, change the buffers. But the ordinance that's public hearing tonight is the same one that doesn't have those changes. I know they're only recommendations. But at that time in the planning board meeting, the chair of the planning board said, one of the reasons to change the highway commercial split zones with the MR to make them all highway commercial is because significant amount of different uses on 173 for years, and they wanted to have some sort of semblance to regulate some of this. So my argument is, if I'm speeding down West Portal Road at 60, 70 miles an hour, and everybody's doing that, the state police shouldn't come out and ticket. You should change the speed limit to 75, because that's what everybody's doing. That's
Actually, that's what
exactly.
DOT does. We do a speed study, we put the signs out, they take the 80th percentile. and they
Oh,
change the
okay,
speed
so 75 miles per hour.
limit. Just telling you that's what the DOT regulations.
Yeah, I've never seen that in my life done. And you know that that wouldn't be safe, and that's not, the whole
I'm not saying it's
argument.
not safe, I'm just saying that's what the DOT regulation is for.
Okay, that was my example. But to use that as a reason to change the zones to something that nobody in the town wants except people who are financially benefiting and a lawsuit settlement, which is clear that's what it was for, because the planning board chair said it at the planning board meeting, is in bad faith, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara. So it's Barbara, I sorry, so it's Barbara, stand first, everything.
That's okay. No, that's okay. I'm fine.
Hi, Rose Hanley, 125 Blackbrook Road. I am here. I've been following along in online meetings, and I was in the the other meeting that led to this, yes. I don't live right near 173, but it is part of my broader community, not just Bethlehem Township, but Hardin County as a whole, rural residential area. And I just want to share that I do not believe that rezoning along 173 is in the best interest of the township as a whole, and certainly not the abutting neighbors. Again, I'm not one, but I care about them and I care about our community. The rezoning appears to be being done to benefit a small number of property owners while being done to the detriment of many other township residents. It does not seem right. It does not seem fair. Both the owners on 173, the properties on 173, as well as the abutting property owners know and knew the zoning of their properties currently when they decided to live there or take up residence or business or whatever it is. And that's what they chose. They should have to abide by the current zoning and regulations. I don't see any justifiable reason why a few property owners should get a zoning change that is detrimental to many others. Abutting property owners should be able to live and enjoy the rural neighborhood that they chose to live in. Rezoning is not consistent with our rural residential nature of our township, and it's not right or fair to our township residents broadly. I think it will also change the nature of the broad area, speeding, more traffic, various things like that. Again, not consistent with what our rural community is and why people have chosen to live here. So I respectfully ask that the committee really think broadly of the whole township, of all of our residents, and beyond our township, and long-term, not just about a few, or not just about a maybe near-term issue. And please vote to not approve the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara.
And to go back to my original question, Steve Bartic, Remind Road.
You don't have to repeat.
Okay. Back when all this started. And all this started because we believe, most of us believe, that it has to do with the 100 concrete and the Minini property. And the lawsuit that was filed against the town. And that's why we think this all started. So my question was Mr. Kenny or Mr. Kenny's law firm involved in the litigation, the beginning litigation with the Manini property and when this all started? The yes or no question?
Public comment, well done, he's done all. Yeah. So,
Well-
anybody follow up question?
Okay, so if the answer there is yes, then it's a conflict of interest for Mr. Kenny. And he should also not be voting on this. Because now it's a conflict of interest because of his law firm and him being involved in the very beginning of these litigations. That part. Second part is there's a couple changes to the zoning here that are underlying. The contractor's office storage, contractor's truck and equipment service and repair, and storage of vehicles, equipment in the HC zones. Those are all new, added to the zoning,
The highway commercial.
to the highway commercial. Well, why is that all added right now, not brought up, way back when?
We did a land use module as part of the master plan review.
So all of a sudden, this is coming up now, because why? It benefits other people?
We review the master plan, we did a land use module, we review the master plan every 10 years, and this is the opportunity to do this.
But why wasn't this brought up in the planning board
It
and
was,
in the beginning?
years ago, you didn't go, it's been over a year we've been discussing this.
These three parts were in there then?
Yes, it's been part of the discussion for over a year.
I disagree with that. And why did we go to executive session in the beginning of the meeting? And was this zoning discussed in the executive session?
Discuss litigation,
Nothing to do with zoning,
that's all I can share with you,
nothing to do with the zoning.
all I can share with you. If you ask the question again, I'm gonna ask you to sit down.
Because if it had to do with that, certain people should have not been in that meeting. Correct?
You have any other comments? We've.
I'm asking a question
Public
or,
comment.
making a comment.
Thank you for your comment.
Again, you're elected by the people of the town to do what the people of the town want to do. Remember that. And you forget that all the
We're
time.
here in the best interest of all the people in town.
Uh-huh.
Any other public comment?
Hi, Emily Jordan, 608 Fox Farm Road. I just wanted to let you know, I do object to the rezoning. I'm deeply impacted by it. I purchased my home about 8 years ago, in my mid-20s, with the intent to raise my 3 children on this lot, with the understanding that I was surrounded by mountain residential. And I feel like you guys are just ripping the rug under my feet. It seems really unfair. Seems like we're not really being listened to. And I don't know, I can't speak for we, but I feel a little bit helpless about all of this. My oldest is 5 years old and she's kind of in this phase where when we drive home and we, pass through the neighborhood, she likes to make comments about, Mommy, do we live in a forest? Mommy, do we live in a farm? I don't want to hear, Mommy, do we live in an industrial park? Do we live in highway commercial? I didn't buy my forever home with this in mind. So I hope you take my comments into consideration, because like I said, it really does deeply impact myself, my neighbors, integrity of my neighborhood. And I consider myself to be the future of our township. I bought this home as my forever home. Thank you.
Thank you. The public comment.
Conover, Kensington Court. Earlier today, I brought 2 petitions to the Township Court. I just want to explain for the record that the protest petitions, they only need signatures from 20% of the neighbors who are within 200 feet of the properties to be rezoned. For the ADS property, there were 20 properties within 200 feet. 25% of those are empty lots, so I couldn't get any signatures from them. but I was able to get signatures for about half of the properties. And all these properties are opposed to rezoning Block 34, Lot 12 into all highway commercial and removing the mountain residential zone. Additionally, Block 34, Lot 5, also known as the cornfield, has probably anywhere from 10 to 14 properties within 200 feet. And with the limited time I had, I was able to get 5 signatures for properties around there. Again, these neighbors are very opposed to rezoning that property to all highway commercial. The reason that's important is because the state law allows residents to voice their opposition to zoning changes when 20% of the neighbors are opposed. The state finds that the 20% threshold is significant enough to warrant action. These signatures on the petition should show you that many people are opposed to this change, including people who are directly impacted, people who are afraid to speak in front of you, and people who are unable to attend due to other obligations, and including other people who are not within the 200 feet are all opposed. The fact is, I haven't heard anyone come up and say that they were in favor of this. The fact is that this zoning change helps only one property owner, and collaterally is going to change the zoning and the allowed uses all up and down 173. I think you're opening the Pandora's box of industrial uses. Once it's changed, you won't be able to reverse it. We are already overwhelmed with tractor trailer parking illegally at exit 7. These changes are going to encourage industrial uses on 173. And maybe that's what you want. Maybe you see it as progress and growth, but that's not what the residents want. And we've tried to tell you this over and over again, but you continue to press forward, trying to satisfy a litigation settlement. Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment?
Just doing this. Liz Malavasi, Mine Road. Everything that Helen, everybody has said so far, I agree with. I wasn't home, otherwise I would have signed the petition. I hate seeing this all changed. I get the taxes are gonna be probably an issue with this new assessment. I know you guys are trying, working hard. The planning board, everybody works hard on these boards, and I get that. I just hate to see this big change, and when I see hotels that might be coming up, and motels, and I just can't even imagine what that's gonna do to 173 and the travel and all of it. Because as it is, when 78 gets shut down, 173 is like crazy land. So I agree. I don't want to see this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Is everybody else spoken, or somebody else wants to speak?
I have one more small, short comment. Can I make a little?
I just want to make sure, so the resolution we passed last year, everybody has to speak at least once, so if everybody said their piece at least once, then we can move on to round 2, which I believe limits to 3 minutes now.
Did you check the Zoom?
Oh, correct.
Thank you.
Does anybody on Zoom have a comment would like to speak?
Hello, can you hear me? This is Amy Hansen.
Yes, we can.
Hi, I am a resident of the township. I live on, let's see, Asbury, West Portal, 8 to Boar Farm Lane. And I'm really concerned hearing everybody's negative comments about this zoning change. I'm concerned that I just really hope the Township Committee will hear these qualms, and you know, it's upsetting that you would try to do away with a mountain community zone. The Bethlehem Township corridor is entirely within the Highlands Preservation Area. And that preservation area was mandated during the passage of the Highlands Water Protection and Planning Act in 2004. And over 70% of the state gets its water from this region. And so this corridor is in a very sensitive ecological and important for the state region, not only for the state's healthy water, but that impacts everybody's health and our economy. I'm just wondering about the township conformed to the Highlands Regional Master Plan in 2014. And this ordinance would allow multiple principal and accessory permitted uses and buildings per lot in the highway commercial and general commercial zones along 173. And I know that before approving ordinance 497-2025, the township must request a regional master plan amendment from the Highlands Council. And has the township requested that amendment?
I will share at the end of public comment.
Okay, thank you. And another question I have is how this zoning change would impact the need for more septic systems in this Highlands Preservation Area. Do you know what the impact of this change would be on septic system need?
If we don't have a planner here, we can make a general comment. I'll do the same once we conclude the public comment.
Okay, and so I strongly urge you to hear our voices. We're farmers in this region, and we desperately depend on clean water and clean air and the forest, etc. And we urge you to oppose this zoning change. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Other comments from Zoom?
Okay.
I'm sorry, is there any other comments from Zoom? I see one person.
This is Jennifer Seibert. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I live on 307 North Polktown. I'm concerned with the closeness of the residential housing, the existing residential houses to the general commercial and the industrial commercial zone along 173 that's being planned. I was looking at the setbacks, and it seems like they really aren't adequate, in terms of protecting those property owners. And I was wondering how the township was going to handle the devaluation in those properties, in terms of their assessment. They've been recently assessed. How's the township going to handle the fact that those properties will most definitely devalue? Their location is going to be much less desirable.
Thank you.
Has that been considered?
And you have any other comment?
That's it.
Thank you. Are there other comments from Zoom? I don't see any, so please, if you'd like to share again.
Sorry, a little forgetful. One last point, just in the short time I've lived here, the landscape of some of the surrounding townships has changed pretty drastically, warehouses going up, things of that nature. And I think this could be a really good opportunity for Bethlehem Township to stand up, show what we're all about, and, kind of pave the way. And say, we are about our rural community. We are about, all the things that the people who live here, really, really love about the town. Just kind of like a shining light amidst all these other landscapes that are unfortunately changing so much. That's all.
Further,
Well, first of all, I'd like to go back to my original question for Mr. Kenny, but then I also have an additional question. When you go for a variance for the planning board or anything else that you want to build on your property or change in zoning, all the property owners within 200 feet have to be notified of every property. Was that done by written registered letter?
well, the attorney's going to share some information when we're done with public comment, and we can include that in his response.
Okay. What about my original question?
That may be included in that response as well. Do you have other questions or comments?
So am I gonna have a chance to rebut if Mr. Kenny comes back with,
No, this is public comment, it's not a chance to rebut, debate.
I know that, but that's why I'm asking the question now, so it's my time to get an answer.
Appreciate that that's the way you feel. Do you have any other public comments? Any other-
So that means I don't get an answer?
Saying that, you're not getting an answer right now.
But am I gonna get a chance to come back at the end?
No.
Why not?
We'll have a public comment session at the end of the meeting.
Okay, you didn't say that.
At the end, not again about this topic, we'll have a public session again at the end.
Okay.
Bob?
Your name, but you spoke, I think that,
Emily, I'm sorry, I didn't say this.
I think that's a great idea. I never thought of it that way. Things are happening around us, a lot of crap, a lot of, I won't say the word SH, you know what? And nobody wants it. The planning board chair does not want the warehouse going in, our next door neighbor. We don't want highway commercial that might have been highway commercial, but now is turning into industrial zone with your increased uses and now decreased mountain residential. I think that's a great way to look at it. If the town can get a backbone and stand up to whatever developer, won't say his name, that lawsuit was bullying you to do. Why the town settled? I don't know. Okay, I don't think it probably should have settled. I think that the town is, I think that would be a great idea for the town to be that one oasis in the midst of a lot of crap of being a beautiful town. And you make this ordinance, that's not highway commercial. That's a purely one huge industrial zone corridor. And if that's what you guys want, then that's what you guys are gonna get. But I think it's a great idea to look at it from a different lens of what this town could really represent. Not Bedlam Township, but think of another word that has trees in it instead, you know, because that's what we could have. Because we're there now and other towns around us might not be. Just think about how great that would make our town be. Thanks.
Thank you.
Maybe the statement. And I will bring a petition to the Highland Council for conformance of this ordinance with the regional master plan, just for the record.
Thank you. Any other second comments? Motion to close public comment?
Make a motion to close public comment?
Yeah. Any additional comments or questions from the committee? I'll address some of the questions that were asked, and then I'll ask Mr. O'Brien to address some of the questions that were asked. So the first one regards Highlands. Our planner spoke to our Highlands representative, Corey Piasecki, and he indicated that the Highlands has no comments on this land use element. Their office will be issuing a letter of conformance based on that review. Highlands does not have an issue, and it will be issuing a letter of conformance to the township based upon this ordinance. This ordinance does not change the fact that these properties are still subject to Highlands. It does not remove them from Highlands. It does not change the impervious coverage from Highlands or any of the regulations. So I appreciate that concern was expressed, but that does not change that. The septic systems, we do not have a planner here to share that. I've been on the land use board for 23 years. I would imagine that highway commercial uses a lot less septics than mountain residential, because residential would be homes that would have septics. And likely highway commercial would not, but it's not a professional statement. I do agree with you on being an oasis. I was lecturing in Rutgers yesterday at the Blaustein School to planners about economic development. And I was very proud to say that Bethlehem Township does not have those applications for light manufacturing, warehouses, and surrounding us. And I don't believe that this ordinance dilutes that in any way. You will not be seeing warehouses in Bethlehem Township. With that, there are questions about the validity of the petition. And why we settled and what this impacts litigation, and I would turn that to Mr. Radnick to share before we take a vote.
Sure. So, Mr. Berniger, just to answer your first question, public notice is not required for master plan amendment unless it's a site-specific zoning change. So we, any land use application that would go before the board, of course, would have to comply with the municipal land use law. So we were really good timing in relation to some litigation that we have with ADS, which I'll get into in a moment, as well as a grant that we received for re-examination of the Route 173 corridor, kind of the main business corridor in the municipality. From 1972 to the early 2000s, there was a concrete plant that operated on this site. And as you can imagine, that's probably couldn't have a more industrial use than a concrete batch plant. The Bethlehem concrete facility and the Latini family came into some hard times, and ultimately that property stopped paying taxes. And when a property owner stops paying taxes, the township issues tax certificates at a tax certificate sale. After a statutory two-year period of time, the owner of the tax sale certificates can institute what's called a tax certificate foreclosure in the foreclosure unit in the Superior Court of New Jersey. The court requires notice, of course, and then ultimately sets what's called a date of redemption. The date of redemption requires the tax sale certificate to be paid with the statutory interest of 12% or less if it's bid down, at which time the property owner can then file that final judgment as a deed and becomes the owner of the property. The contract purchaser of the site sought to reestablish the concrete use. As you may recall, this was a heavily contested application. I believe it went above a dozen hearings over about a year and a half. And ultimately, the board, and there was quite a concerted objectors effort, including counsel and experts. Ultimately, the planning board denied the application, raised issues of abandonment, and the matter was then appealed to Hunter County Superior Court. That was in the late 2018, 2019. For the next several years, that matter was litigated before Judge Shanahan, Judge O'Neill. And Judge O'Neill ultimately ruled that the township was incorrect in denying the concrete batch plant use. That there was going to be a remand back to the planning board on issues of some abandonment, but ultimately there was an incredible risk that that property would be used as a concrete batch plant, which, you know, lots of traffic, lots of trip generation, lots of noise, lots of odors. And we've been working, of course, when I came aboard 3 years ago, we tried that case, we got the decision, and ultimately, we were authorized to appeal that decision. Luckily, three judges at the appellate division, looked at the record very carefully and ruled in Bethlehem Township's favor and remanded the case back to the trial court. The judge then retired, and it's been sort of suspended while the court encourages a resolution. As we sit here today, there are two uses that are not in dispute that are permitted on that site: truck sales and repair, as well as the ADS environmental use that is environmental remediation company. I'm sure you've seen their trucks. They take out oil tanks, etc. We've been negotiating for the better part of 2 years to come to a resolution on the litigation. And I think the most important thing for the public to understand is that part and parcel to the settlement, the concrete batch plant would be abandoned and no longer pursued. In exchange, we would allow the current use that's there, which is permitted. Okay, both those uses are permitted uses. So it's really, in my view, somewhat of a no-brainer for the township to enter into a settlement agreement, because it's exactly what's there today. However, we also get the benefit of a site plan application, full site plan application that will go before the board, the joint land use board, and talk about things like new buildings and a nicer entranceway, and improvements to the lot, lighting, things like that, stormwater management. I should also note that, Mr. Manini, did a substantial, $1 million plus remediation to the property. Property was heavily contaminated. So we feel, I feel, personally, I'm just the attorney, but I feel that this is an incredibly good result to resolve the case with ADS and to allow them to continue to operate the truck sales and service and repair, which is a permitted use, as we sit here today, as well as the permitted use of the environmental company. So effectuating, and so when the planning board took a look at the entire Route 173 corridor, they looked at the uses that are there. They looked at trends in the industry, and again, there's really not many changes other than the inclusion of contractors' offices in the storage yards, as well as truck and equipment service and repair, again, in that HC zone. So that's not really a really big change to what's there today. For the other sites, but specific to the ADS site, it allows that site to proceed to a site plan, not before the zoning board of adjustment, but before the land use board. And then they can impose, reasonable conditions related to the improvement of the site. But again, we get what's there now, but with new buildings and new entrance, new signage. And we have the benefit of a voluntary abandonment by settlement of the concrete batch plant. So we feel that that's a great win for the municipality. And I think that's it.
I'll be more blunt. Who saw the signs from back in 2017 and 18 that said no concrete plant, no toxic waste, no, whatever they said, I forget at this point. Who saw those signs? Everything that's on that sign will not happen on that property with the settlement. That's what's important. That's why it's beneficial to the future of Bethlehem Township. Any other questions or discussion from the committee members?
It was brought up at the planning board, one thing, that nothing there is not an option on that property. That's really discussed that something there was going to happen, and it's better that we control.
If this goes back to the court outside of the settlement, we had no say as a township. You came here and said that we're here to represent you. This allows us to continue to represent you. If this goes back to the court, this goes to a judge who will decide for us, and we have no say. I would rather bring this back to the planning board and have them come for a site plan and let us have a say and represent you as best we can under the circumstances. With that, I would like to ask for a motion to adopt ordinance 497 2025. And I have two amendments to the ordinance. I would like to remove.
Excuse me, but I didn't
section
get the
3,
answer
sir.
to Mr. Kenny
Without public comment.
I didn't get the
Please
answer
sit
to
down,
Mr.
sir.
Kenny question.
Please sit down.
You said I would give the answer. I
Please,
didn't give the
before we
answer.
have to call the authorities to come up here for you, please sit
Give
down.
us an opportunity to go through this.
Please sit down.
Your question will be resolved.
You said it was gonna be answered
It will be, trust us, it will be.
before the vote.
Maybe during the vote. Please sit down. Again, I would like a motion to adopt ordinance 497 2025 with the following amendments: the removal of section 3, which states section 102-10 of the Code of Township of Bethlehem entitled zoning map, critical areas map, wetlands map, carbon area district overlay to zoning map is modified to rezone the following properties to the R 1.5 zoning district, lot 14, lot 8. The second amendment is on the adjacent land use, section 6, table 8, adjacent land uses on the bottom, says industrial over 5 acres. In the columns, residential type A, 150 feet to be changed to 300, residential type B, 150 feet to be increased to 300. Now that motion to adopt as a roll call vote.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 497.
Actually, I asked for a motion. I need a motion in a second, and we do it all.
Okay.
So, is that a motion?
I thought I was-
I apologize.
Am I wrong?
No, you are, it's good to reiterate.
Am I getting- I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 497.2025.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Is there more?
No. I thought you wanted to repeat everything.
No, I don't like the sound of my own voice.
Do I have a second? I will second that. Roll call vote, please.
Cotton,
Yes.
Kenny,
Recuse.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Muir.
Refused.
Thank you.
The ordinance is adopted. Thank you for your comments. We do appreciate
Yes,
it.
with those changes.
Yes. Adopted.
Adopted with those changes.
No.
Thank you. Under new business discussion to hold a rabies clinic on November 1st, 2025, from 12 PM to 1 PM.
And make a motion to adopt the rabies clinic at that date and time.
November 1st, 2025. All in favor?
Aye.
Report of Township Attorney. No report. Report of Health and Safety Coordinator, Mr. Lenson.
County just put out a, I guess, an uptick of flu, the possibility of now the measles, if present on. They have it on their website as well, just for people some information. You know, they get them. Check it out.
Can you, sorry, we realized last meeting that we didn't speak louder.
Oh, I'm sorry. As I mentioned before, the Huntington County Health Department just put out some informational stuff in regards to the upticks of the various flus and cases going on, as well as the uptick in measles cases. At the time, they said there hadn't been anything measles related in Huntington County. However, we are keeping an eye on it and keeping the towns notified through the chain of command.
Do we have any measles outbreak in Hunter County?
As of the last email I got from them 3 days ago, no. That changed, I don't know.
Thank you. Report of Finance Coordinator, it's, myself. This is busiest time of year for finance, of course, we're in our budget season. I appreciate everyone coming out to this meeting. And I appreciate your dedication to this ordinance, but I may proffer that the budget may be even more significant and importance to your future here in Bethlehem Township. So we had a meeting at 6 o'clock. We'll be hosting the next one before our next meeting, which is March 6th. There may be additional budget meetings this year as well. Tonight was the preliminary budget. We did not make any significant progress or changes that I want to report on yet. We are doing our best to mitigate any tax increases. The health insurance premiums are up 18%. Our staff contribute to the health insurance. And with that significant of an uptick in the cost, our salaries would not actually even bring people home with our normal and usual increases. So we need to make sure that we protect those who work very hard for us. And we're trying to do that. So salaries are an increase. We're keeping them as minimum as possible. Health insurance, we cannot control. General costs that we're all facing show up in that budget. So we're trying to find ways to mitigate that. We are right now potentially reducing the actual tax rate by 33% to compensate for your reassessments. So the average home value in Bethlehem Township previously, and had not been assessed since 2006, was about $358,000. The average home value in Bethlehem Township as of the reassessment is $607,000. So I will share, while it's difficult when you need to calculate the taxes on that, I share oftentimes those who are elected to represent you. We're here to protect and enhance your home value. So your home has exceeded its investment, it's outpaced inflation. So as an investment, it's been a good investment. It's, while we don't want to have to pay the taxes on it, it's actually a good thing to have seen increases in the values. We're doing the right things in Bethlehem Township to make it a desirable place to live, with home values such as that. But with that, again, we did reduce our tax rate, as I shared when this process started. We were trying to work with the school boards, to understand where they may go. The difficulty for the school board is their fiscal year is July to June, and ours is a calendar year. So they have not begun their budget process. They have not looked at their tax rate yet. We're trying to get them to look at the tax rate in advance. Bottom line, we're trying to mitigate any increases, as much as we can. I would reiterate that, increases are due to the costs of our budget, not to that reassessment, because we are adjusting the tax rate back down. Any questions for me from the committee? Okay, again, the next budget meeting is March 6th, 6 p.m. Those are also on Zoom as well. Board of Land Use Board, Ms. Nelson.
There's no updates tonight.
Report of zoning inviting members, Mr. Cotton. No report. Mr. Kenny. Nothing. Mr. Lenzi. Nothing, sir. Ms. Nelson.
I did meet with the environmental committee on Tuesday night. Main things, Suzanne can correct me, the main discussion points of the meeting were, trying to figure out what trails are in town, how to connect them, how to get the word out there. We did discuss, I had my notes here, I lost them. Drawing a blank at the moment. But we discussed the trails, we also discussed the training center, talking about development and the training center that we go in over at, Spruce Run area in Union Township. And, then there were some concerns brought up about the warehouse or the light manufacturing, as I should call it, over in Greenwich. Those are the main takeaways. Anything I should add?
No,
Okay.
but we had asked you there to, present the Highlands.
Yeah, I'm gonna, talk to the Highlands and also the bridge. You discussed the bridge, over in Vernon.
Okay. Yeah, so, along those lines, Mr. Grimsdale already reached out to me about the bridge. We'll be working with our DPW for some stabilization as we try to figure out it's still stable and still exists enough that the DEP permits are not, prohibitive. With the trails, the only thing I would ask for the environmental commission, I think the meeting I attended back in January, there's some discussion about equine trails and the possibility. I had at least one resident who offered to help volunteer, maybe as a subcommittee or just as a volunteer to help out, the environmental commission, and we can work to do their open space projects. I think that would be a wonderful compliment for Bethlehem Township. I know sometimes they are in Heritage Park. It would be helpful to have designated trails, not at Heritage Park, for equine trail use. Report Township Administrator, Ms. Winnie.
I just have, 2 executive sessions, 1 personnel, 1 contract.
Can I jump back? I have one litigation. No other report?
No.
I report to mayor, and the only thing I need to do is, the mayoral appointment to Oliver Grimsdale as the chairperson of the Environmental Commission. We appreciate Mr. Grimsdale joining this year, with Mr. Footy, and I think they've jumped in, into that role as well. I'm looking forward to it. So Mr. Grimsdale will now be the official chair of the Environmental Commission. My only other update would have been the budget, which I already covered under finance. It's consuming most of our time, now through March. So I have no other further updates at this time either. Can I have a motion to open the public comment?
Make a motion to open the public comment.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any public as well?
I don't think that settlement is win for the township. I don't think that landowner is a good neighbor. He's been dumping a lot of crap. Yes, we have seen his trucks go in and out of that property for years. And people have come up to and the zoning officer showing, truckloads of stuff coming in. he's not a good neighbor. So those signs that say no recycling, no toxic waste, I think that's what they say, there already is, so. Thanks.
Hi, Lisa Carver, Kensington Court. I just had a question about the protest petition that I submitted. I was wondering if it was, I guess, honored or valid.
That's all right, I apologize, Mr. Gallagher, there's a legal, we did all review it, we saw it, we reviewed it.
It was circulated in anticipation of the meeting for all the members.
So was it? So with the protest petition, you have to have a 2/3 vote,
I mean, it's
right?
not, it's it's essentially an advisory suggestion, it doesn't bind the township to make a decision one way or the
The
other.
protest petition doesn't bind the township to do a 2/3 vote. It's a New Jersey statute 4055D-63.
I'm not familiar.
I can
Can
give
you
you
cite the statute for?
4055D-63. I can give it to you if you want. So basically saying, because the 20% or more of property owners within 200 feet, the amendment requires a favorable vote of 2/3 of all the members of the governing body of the municipality, meaning all 5. So that would be 3.3 people. So, I know you guys voted 3 and then 2 recused, so that's still not enough. So you would have needed 4 votes to pass this ordinance. I also have, if you want to look this one up too, this is Campbell versus North Plainfield, where they had a zoning ordinance overruled because they didn't have the 2/3 vote, even though one of their members resigned. But I think that maybe the way to determine. Mm-hmm.
Says a protest against any proposed amendment or written provision of the zoning ordinance may be filed with the municipal clerk, signed by owners of 20% or more of the area of either one of the lots or land included in such proposed change.
Right.
Or 2, the lots extending 200 feet in all directions thereof, including street space.
Right.
So, I don't have the mathematics in front of me, but that would probably be a lot more than just the petitions on that.
So
People that sign the petition, so it would have to be all people of 200 feet from all the zone changes.
So everything within the ordinance, it would have to be all of 173.
Well, affected by the zone change, right?
But not just the 1 or the 2 properties that we got signatures for.
Right, but I haven't read the issue, but that's what it says. All directions. So I don't believe this violates that.
You don't think that
I don't
makes
think
it a
that- I
valid
think your
protest petition?
petition constitutes 20% of all property owners within 200 feet of all lots, subject to the zoning change.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Rose Hamlin, Blackbrook Road. Your attorney, your explanation of the situation and the settlement was helpful. Context, appreciate that. What I don't understand, and you did not address in there, is why there needed to be rezoning. You didn't say anything about how rezoning needed to be done as part of the settlement. So,
Condition settlement that, so anytime that you are in a land use dispute, it's called a prerogative right complaint. The primary objective is to be able to go back to the board with permitted uses. Right, you don't want to create a situation, let's assume you're Manini, you don't want to create a situation where you have to go back for a use variance. Right, so that the reason for the particular language related to the uses that are now permitted in the zone was a condition part and parcel to the settlement agreement, so that Mr. Benini or anybody else that wants to use those uses wouldn't have a D1 use variance. D1 use variance would require a supermajority of the land use board sitting as a zoning board of adjustment. So obviously, you're not going to settle the case if it's going to get denied.
Perhaps I misunderstood. I thought you were saying the uses that they want to do are permitted today. And so that is just allowing them to continue to do things that are permitted today. I guess, is rezoning allowing them to do it on more of their property? Is that's what I just didn't,
I mean,
was not understanding.
I'd encourage you to go to the planning board hearings and ask their professional engineer and their professional planner about that particular issue. The uses are permitted, and the township's not giving up anything. Mr. Manini's giving up a concrete batch plant. And, you know, again, to echo the mayor's words, we didn't prevail in the litigation at the Superior Court level. And although the appellate division agreed with certain technical arguments that we made, they remanded back to the trial court, who determined that that use is permitted. So again, that's a lot of risk for the municipality.
Is permitted currently.
No, that the concrete batch plant was permitted and should be permitted. There's a question about some portions of the site that were demolished, and whether those portions of the site were abandoned, and that was unresolved in our litigation. But the use itself as a concrete batch plant was considered a pre-existing non-conforming use that would be able to continue to operate, which has, in my opinion, far greater impacts than what's there today. And I also want to stress that as it relates to truck parking is only permitted as an accessory to the principal permitted use. It's not as its own principal use. So you may drive up and down 173, down past, Union Township, and you see a tremendous amount of truck parking. That's not permitted use, nor is warehousing. So it's really, our industrial zone is quite limited. I would say the only real industrial use is the light manufacturing, and that requires all activities to be in one building. So there's really no change to what's there today, except I think a substantial enhancement to the site by virtue of the site plan that's gonna, improve the condition of the buildings and the signage and the frontage, front elevation, landscaping, buffering, things like that. So I encourage you to participate in that process, because this is a global settlement, but the details will be hammered out in the major site plan application before the planning board.
Respectfully, there are changes. And you said the township didn't give up anything. The township took things away from the abutting neighbors. So when you say the township didn't give up anything, I don't know what you mean by that.
But before any other initial public comments? No. But
Potentially, well, 311.8.04. A lot's been said tonight. I make a lot of comments, and I'd love to answer a lot of questions. The attorney explained a lot of what has gone on pretty well. The town has a history. There's a lot of yesteryear things going from the 70s. In front of the planning board, we were looking and going back into the 40s, 30s, 40s, quarrying operations prior to the concrete plant. That part of the town has always been an industrial kind of section of town. So that's something to look at. We have railroads in this town. We have a railroad bed which has been, exempted for years. At some point, Amtrak could conceivably open this back up, and then there's going to be train lines against people's homes that today people are going to be upset about. But it was allowed in the past. We, as a board, had looked at mainly split zone properties that were along 173, and we basically brought them into conformance into the area or the use that it was currently being used for. We've we basically said from one end of 173 to the other, about some current uses. There's various different uses, and all we try to do is pull them into a more of a cohesive use, along with existing uses. We all want to keep the town the way it is. The re-examination of the master plan brought an important thing as far as everyone's concerned about warehousing. You know, everybody that was on board, Township Committee members and residents, everybody voiced strong opinions against warehouses. Warehouses are changing the landscapes in Alpha and Phillipsburg, and possibly Union Township, and possibly Greenwich Township. We're concerned as a town as far as truck traffic. You have it on Charlestown Road consistently, you have it on 579 consistently. But 173 is a highway. And long before it was, Route 173, it was Route 22. And long before it was Route 22, it was actually called Brunswick Pike. And although the town has a little section of official Brunswick Pike, Route 22 on the old maps has Brunswick Pike being all of 173. So all I'm saying is that there's a lot of history that we as a town have to look at and still hold some of those responsibilities forward. I do ask the committee, both Union Township, although again, it's not our town, Greenwich Township, it's not our town, and it's not our county even. Both of those pose significant traffic changes. And it's something that we need to definitely face head on. Union Township is still in the earlier planning stages as far as what's going to end up happening at the Foster Wheeler facility. The Greenwich Township side, my main concern is the traffic, which is at exit 7. Again, that's in Bloomsbury, but that affects, that whole section of town. It has gone through Greenwich Township extremely slowly. Not a lot of activity, not a lot of townspeople knew about what was going on. I can see after learning from a resident about this approximately a month ago, I can see how things can be considered shady. Greenwich Township, again, they do them, I guess, but we should look into sending a strongly worded letter, whether we get our planner involved to at least do a cursory look at it. Again, the concern anytime during rush hour and in the morning or in the evening, going down 173, I'm sure many residents will say you can't get through there. And my big concern is Bloomsbury handles the section of our fire services. After suffering a loss, I'm a little hypersensitive now to actually fires. And those moments that trucks are going to be, parked where fire engines or police can't get through there is extremely concerning. The other issue naturally is we have a huge section of 78. Bloomsbury handles all of the accidents that are on there. The county just installed a 911, I'm sorry, not 911, a two-way communications
Should we go with the 5-minute
system. I'll finish up. So the county is concerned about information moving on our section of the highway. The tower's been built, but not being able to get through a traffic jam, which is consistently on exit 7. It should be addressed.
Been in discussion with our attorney for whatever appropriate action we can take. Obviously, it's out of our jurisdiction, but we'll figure out. We've done letters in the past with interesting dismissals of those letters, so we're trying to figure out some ways that we can have a little bit more of an influence. I am in consistent discussions with both the mayor of Union Township regarding that project and potential alternatives. Greenwich, we do not have a great relationship. I've been saying this for years. It's almost like there's a wall between Hunterdon and Warren County. But Bloomsbury, their mayor and I have been talking about, strategies as well, trying to mitigate, those. So, it'd be appreciated if there was a reasonable approach, but as you shared, a lot of these, municipalities, could be benefiting and not, as concerned about their neighbors based on where they're placing these things. There. 5 minutes.
Jose Maderas, block 46, lot 1407. I just want to clarify a little bit on what Mr. Chalet was saying. In planning, and basically, we're just your neighbors. The only difference between us and you guys is that we've been through a lot of training for land use. And so one of the things that is frowned upon in land use is what's called a split zone lot. That's a lot that part of it is in one zone and part of it is in another zone. The problem with that kind of lot is that that zone line is not truly defined. It's not like some surveyor went out and said, here, we're gonna put some pins here and there that say this is where the zone changes. So it kind of floats, and it's a little bit difficult, and courts don't like that. They don't like any kind of arbitrary lot lines. So what we set out to do this year when we reviewed the master plan was to get rid of split zones as much as we could. And that's what we look to do. But by adding the 300-foot buffer, which I suggested, and I appreciate that you followed through on, we've basically just drawn now a solid line on those lots that say 300 feet away from the lot line is where you can build up to. So that's still, now that preserves that 300-foot buffer for everybody who lives against those lots. So it basically, it gives you back what you had, but in a much better defined way. So I just wanted to say that, and I wanted to thank the committee for adjusting that lot line to 300 feet.
Bob?
I have a couple of questions, regarding that 300-foot buffer. The last time I looked at the, Google Earth map, it's already destruction past that 200-foot buffer from the back of the property. But I have some questions. Mr. Brodnick, is the Route 173 corridor highway commercial? Or is it called an industrial zone? You use the word industrial zone.
There's several different zoning.
That's my point. You use the word industrial zone. It's zoned highway commercial. There is no definition in our ordinances for industrial zone. You slipped and said it's industrial zone when your guys are calling it highway commercial. Interesting. I have a question for you. You said Corey, Piaz, however you say his name, said that it was conforming. Can you say exactly what was conforming? Was it the master plan, the land use element, or the ordinance? And can you tell me the date of when he said it was conforming?
Said it this morning, so it's today's date. Actually, I apologize, I said it this afternoon. The Highlands has no comments on the land use element.
But we're not doing the land use element right now, we're doing the ordinance.
And their office will be issuing a letter of conformance based on that review.
So the element, not the ordinance.
The wording is land use element.
Okay. Okay, and then, what was my next question? So the definition of enhancement to the site, maybe the owner's gonna pretty up buildings. I would rather have ugly buildings than contaminated soil, because that's what he was probably bringing in. And my guess is he never wanted a concrete batch plant. He deals with contaminated soils. That is his business profession, taking out oil tanks and contaminated soils. I just really wonder where those soils are going from all those tanks he's taken out of the ground. And when he was before the board in 2018, we asked for a base study of the water, base study of the soils. He wouldn't allow anybody to come on the property to do a base study. What is that telling you? So an enhancement, yes, maybe it will look prettier, but hell, I wouldn't want to drink that water.
Right.
Oh, sorry, one more second. And now that you've increased the highway commercial to all the way back to their properties, good luck with your wells not being contaminated.
Barter from my road. Thank you very much for your explanation of all that. Thank you very much. Mr. Kenny, thank you for abstaining. I appreciate that. Mr. Muir, thank you for reclusing yourself, but it was at the last meeting that Mr. Cotton said that he will not be voting on this, and all of a sudden he voted on it tonight. Can we explain why?
I just, I leave it to the attorney, but he is allowed to vote on it. And it's-
He said last meeting that he will not be voting.
No, not at the last meeting. We needed to catch up on the history of this site, the history of litigation. There's no prohibition on Mr. Cotton voting.
But he stated that in the meeting, in the minutes, it's in the minutes, that he would not be voting on this item.
On that evening.
No, at this meeting.
There's nothing to prohibit him from placing his vote on the record. He's elected official.
Well, we're gonna have to look into that and go back to the ethics board and see about that.
What's the alternative to host that vote if, we don't have enough people to
Yeah,
vote?
I mean,
Exactly,
well, the problem.
exactly. It means it's,
Just listen to the answer, yes, the question.
You don't have a quorum. And there's a doctrine of futility where then everybody can vote.
Right.
So you had a
Well,
choice.
we didn't have a quorum last meeting, and that's why it was tabled to this meeting.
That's not.
It's not gonna be quorum, we wanted everybody to be here, this is a very important decision. Mr. Lindsay was not here, he needed to be here, I wanted all 5 committee members to be here, listen to our residents, and be part of this discussion, it wasn't.
And it still didn't matter because it got passed. So you didn't listen to the residents, you did what you wanted.
I disagree. We
Well, I
listened to
don't-
what you
I
had to
don't-
say,
And I disagree, because everybody here was against it.
and there are 4,000
So-
residents in Bethlehem Township.
Mr. Lindsay, thank you very much for all the updates on the snow, the ice, the power that is killing everybody. And thank you for explaining to some of the residents about the snow and the ice, that they don't understand that you have to wait for the ice, then plow the snow.
I was trying to explain that, that wasn't me.
Well, it was very good.
Mr. Barter
And
doesn't want to give me credit for anything, so.
No, it's okay.
it was what?
Mr. Barter doesn't want to give me credit for anything, so it's okay. You can have the
Well,
credit.
you do some good things. But, so. My main thing was that Mr. Cotton stated on record that he wasn't gonna be voting on this. Last meeting and or this
We
meeting,
don't
he
disagree
did
with
say
his
that, he was not gonna vote on this,
We don't disagree with this conclusion.
so, thank you.
You there?
So about the power, I've been thinking of a crazy idea and I'd like to ask the attorneys if this makes any, is possible.
There's only one municipal attorney.
I realize that.
And it's him.
If all of the people in Bethlehem Township got together and decided to, rather than sending their electric bill payment to the electric company, if we all hired an attorney and paid all that money as an escrow into an escrow account to hold up payment to the electric company, could that bring the electric company, first of all, would that be legal? And second of all, would that maybe bring the electric company into maybe thinking a little bit about doing the right thing? Just an idea, you know, maybe it's crazy.
I've said this before and I'll say it again with JCP&L, their parent company, First Energy, is a for-profit company, unfortunately.
Yep.
And Bethlehem is a little microcosm, it would take more, it'd have to take more than just Bethlehem, it would be all multiple municipalities. I can explain now, I work in Livingston, which PSENG does half of Livingston, JCP&L does the other half. And JCP&L portion is a part that's always going down. You're right, they're horrible, we've been
But they are a for-profit company. If all of a sudden they stop getting their payments, they wouldn't be very profitable.
The biggest right now would be have to go with the BPU and, you know, when BPU cleaned up and they would have to put their fingers down.
Yeah, I say, I shared, the community page as well, but, you know, just hopefully if people do watch these meetings beyond who's here tonight. When you have a power outage, it's very important that you call it in and get a confirmation number. One, because then it's recorded on the engineering logs from JCP&L. Two, the confirmation number, if it's extended outage, helps Mr. Lenzi. I'm saying Mr. Lenzi, not me. Mr. Lenzi to help follow up. I'm there to follow up as well. But we need that confirmation number. But I also shared, please report that to the BPU, because the more reports that they get, despite whatever status they're in at this point, because I saw there was a call for them all to resign this morning from one of our senators or Congress people, report it to BPU. So we have that record. I do have, and I apologize, I forgot, I was like, when I was in there, you probably know I had another report. I am meeting with JCP&L representatives on March 5th at Assemblyman Peterson's office with BPU, their engineers, one of our actually commercial residents, Muddy Waters, had been very outspoken, and so I've included him as a great spokesperson for us of how it's affecting his business and his life. So he'll be joining me in that meeting to share that with JCPL and BPU. Also, part of that is they're supposed to be creating a resiliency plan. So before we hold our payment, I would give them the opportunity to share this resiliency plan and then also share how they're actually going to implement it. If it does not seem likely, then I will pursue additional action with BPU. But I need as many residents when you have outages to report them to BPU, so we have a record.
Not just outages, brownouts too.
Yeah, so that's-
whatever.
Yeah.
brownouts, then it needs to be reported.
Right, and those brownouts are probably that's about the only thing that I've been experiencing.
Losing to more games.
Yeah, they are. I mean, the first thing I do when we get a brownout is I run over and I shut off my main because, that partial power is causing things to overheat. So it's a very dangerous situation when you have a brownout. A blackout is, there's nothing going on, so nothing's gonna happen. But,
The other thing too is from the JCPNL rep, she had reached out during the most recent outage in the Turkey Hill 579 area, which was like 2 days ago. That, again, take it for what it's worth, she said that she was advised that the engineers have realized that there's been increased amount of outages in that particular area. They're gonna start doing some research into it to see what's.
So I think they were already working. Last night I came through and the trucks, there were 3 trucks and another one coming. Trees. Far into the woods right across from Turkey Hill. I was surprised. I think they had their lights flashing in the middle of the woods. They were concerned about how far they were into the woods. It was at night. They were working there last night.
I mean, the lineman who took care of that telephone pole in front of my house that was split. When I was talking to him, he said that since Sandy, this whole area was, it was devastated by Sandy and it was only patched together. They never bothered to come back out and really do a final fix on that. And I think that's what we're paying for today. And, if the linemen know that, if their own employees know what's going on, obviously there's a problem there, so.
And that's hopefully part of the resiliency plan, that they'll identify those and put together a plan of how to fix those. We had consistent brownouts, looking around, Mr. Kenny was the only one that was around as attorney at the time. It was 2011, 12, it was actually before Sandy and Snowmageddon. We were having consistent brownouts on Turkey Hill to the point that we had to go to BPU. And it was only one road, but they did put a resiliency plan together. And up until recently, I think Turkey Hill was actually one of our hardier roads because they did some replacements, some isolations, some switches. At the time, President McCall, he just retired, I should say. As soon as I walk in the room, Turkey Hill, we harassed them so much that we knew. And we're intending to do the same thing again. I'm going to give them the opportunity to share what they are. Someone in Peterson's office, I'm hoping to have some additional clout there from the legislator to hold them to it in the BPU, but we'll see. But thank you for those comments. Also on the electric, and just as a side comment, I think it's something we should be proud of. We had joined and initiated the 100 area energy cooperative. We were one of the first 3 that founded that, with California and Clinton. And now there are 17 municipalities in addition to the county government buildings that participate. And so when you saw that 20% rate increase from BPU recently, if you remain in the 100 area energy cooperative, you are protected from that 20% increase until November 2025. And we're trying to work to extend that. So That's a significant savings this year for being a part of that, and it's something that I'm glad we are part of. I do believe you can opt back in if you opted out, but that is a significant savings, and you're protected till almost to the end of the year.
Have to say my name again, or we?
It's up to the clerk for legality.
Okay, thank you for your perspective, it's good to hear your side as well, but just kind of to respond to that. I understand, what you're saying about the split zoning being confusing, but from my perspective, I live on block 34, lot 9.01. And like, with the proposed rezoning, on my 25-mile-an-hour road, the patch of trees between my house and my lovely next door neighbor's house is now gonna be highway commercial, so talk about confusing, right? Like, and then on the other side of that as well, with the buffer that you had mentioned, there is no buffer anymore, at least on Fox Farm Road. The trees that were there when I moved in, there's like 4 left. Most of them were ash trees, most of them had fallen, a lot of them fell onto my property. So speaking from experience there, even if there is a 300-foot buffer, like what kind of buffer are we really gonna be looking at?
Actually, it will be a buffer, because when they come for a site plan, the planning board then defines what a buffer is. In addition, we do have a definition of a buffer in our zoning, so right now they're not in compliance, and part of this process is to bring them in compliance. A buffer does have a definition of a height plus vegetation, so they
Okay.
have to comply with that, and they will be creating actual buffers. And they
Sounds
have
like
to
a-
maintain those.
Sounds like a very timely process, though, to grow a buffer back to where it used
That's also,
to be.
in the past, and we had people put buffers, we asked for escrows for years out, because they need to maintain those buffers, and so it will take time to grow a buffer, but they have to do that, and they have to maintain it.
That's all, thank you.
What's your address now?
My address, 608 Fox Farm Road.
All right. All right, I asked if anybody wanted to speak one more time, but I like you, so.
Well, something came up, and she mentioned buffers, that's my question is. Charlie Matarazzo, 1 or 2 Blossom Road, that buffer, is that gonna be like an automatic thing, the 300-foot, because the front of the property is highway commercial, and the back is mountain residential. So do you squeeze the 2 sides in the back right in automatically, 300 feet?
I believe it's to the next, property, so it's to the back and sides, not the front, but the back and sides.
Lot 34, lot 12. I have a site plan of that, and it shows the highway commercial and mountain residential right off the back of the big metal building as you're looking at it from the highway. So what I'm saying to you is, it's gonna be like a funnel then, because right out the back of the building is the highway commercial and mountain residential starts. So then you bring the 2 sides in, so if you bring his right side in, he loses his tractor and trailer parking, then that's what I'm asking. Because if it's a mandatory 300 feet, it should be a mandatory 300 feet with a chain link fence against it, protected.
I don't have a chain link fence, but that'll be part of the site plan.
You see what I'm saying though? Because he's gonna lose his tractor and trailer parking.
Buffer is buffer. And it's
That's
up
all
to-
I wanna know.
It's up to the, site plan.
Okay.
How much? Just to reference this. We put together a tree ordinance a few years ago that took many years to pass. The town is very concerned about trees. With the ash borer and with the loss of all the trees that are in town, certain parts of town have a lot more ash trees than others, but those trees dying out is also changing the landscape of a lot of people's properties. The problem with most of the power on most of the roads is the ash trees falling down. So until they ultimately all end up down, we're gonna continually have, losses of power. We had discussed possibly, as part of tree ordinance, bringing homeowners responsible for dead trees on their properties. It didn't end up going into the final, ordinance, but it's something that we should all look for. If you have a dead ash tree that's in the fall zone of wires, you only have 2 options. Either, pay someone to take it down, wait for JCP&L. They do have a tree maintenance program. So much money, every couple of years. pay for it yourself or wait for nature to take it down. That's the only option. I also,
going to take it down with a certain piece of wire.
yeah, I mean, it's only gonna come down.
The live tree, they're not gonna take it down.
Exactly, but the dead ash trees are a definite problem. The 579 curve was a huge problem for a year. JCP&L, I guess 2 or 3 years ago, focused on that one area. And they took down all the dead ash trees. And there has been no more losses in there. I mean, most of the trees are down now. But I would suggest that maybe in the spring newsletter, when you do something, we start encouraging replanting of trees. Because it takes years for things to grow. But if we sit here, year after year, watching what we have left of the tree stock, die, all of a sudden we are going to change the scope of what our town is. So maybe we can encourage, we do have a tree expert that's on the planning board who you could, Bill Bell might be able to put something together for it. But, maybe some recommendations of trees from the big box stores and then from nurseries.
Any public comment? Anybody on Zoom? Close public comment?
Make a motion to close public comment.
Second. In favor?
Aye.
Wants to enter executive session to discuss 2 personnel? Both personnel?
Oh, one personnel,
Okay, 1 personnel, 1 contract, 1 litigation.
I make that motion?
Second. In favor?
Aye.